Usually, I say to really be a keynote, it's you have to have the big idea. And look, this might be a being too close to the problem issue, where I feel like, no, but there's a lot to dive into that is the problem. And I'm not done yet.
What is the difference between occasional keynote speaker and consistent main stage presence? That's the journey facing my friend Amanda Natividad right now. Amanda is a marketing thought leader who likes to poke the bear. She likes to say the hard thing out loud, to confront the marketing industry about its own shortcomings and about the more foundational things that are changing that people don't want to talk about. A big way she's been doing that recently is she co-authored a great book called Zero Click Marketing alongside marketing legend Rand Fishkin. Amanda is also the founder of a consultancy of the same name, and 200,000 marketers follow her for her ideas, her advice, and the harsh truth she shares about their realities. Her new keynote really helps you confront what's changing in marketing. And no, she's not just going, AI, I guess it's changing. She has something very specific and very important to say, calling out marketing and helping them evolve. But how do you deliver a speech so they follow you if you're confronting them instead of pull back? How do you help them evolve to do something better instead of just making sure they feel bad all the time? These are just some of the challenges that Amanda brought to me as we watched a part of her talk and found ways to make it better. What is something you would tell a person who wants a keynote but has never been on the main stage? So maybe they've given their fair share of breakouts, their fair share of workshops. What do you find is the difference in what you have to do or what you have to speak about? What are some of the things you tell someone?
I think one thing people tend to think is, oh, you have to be famous to be a keynote speaker. And sure, sometimes, but there are also different kinds of famous, right? Like there are the Michelle Obamas, the people who get paid six figures to be the keynote. Okay, that's different, right? That's just a whole different ballgame. That's not most of us. But usually I say to really be a keynote, it's you have to have the big idea, like a breakout session, a workshop, that kind of thing that tends to be how to do this thing. Here's a case study on this tactic that we teach. Here's a new concept that we've been teaching people. It's sort of like the marketing lecture in a sense. The keynote slot is you have to change how someone sees the world. You have to change it's like maybe it's picking at the status quo and being like, this is wrong for these reasons. It's something, right? It's a big idea. And I will also say the best way to try to get a keynote slot is if they have an explicit theme, okay, cool. Go study it. Figure out how your big idea fits into it. Other events might not really have a theme. It's just like, it's a big conference. 500 people are coming. There are keynote slots. And for that, I would say, look at past events. Like if you can try to look up past agendas, past speaker rosters, then try to figure out okay, here are the keynote slots they had. Here are the breakouts they had last year. Here's what I think I can do differently. Or here's what I can do that I think is adding to what they've already done. That way you're coming in with a fresh idea, a fresh big idea, and you can pitch them on something specific.
Yes.
Because the other thing I'll say, right, is now this with regards to speaker submittals. I think everyone, and I'm saying this as someone who's been on both sides of the table, right. As an event organizer, as the person pitching. In my opinion, it doesn't take a whole lot to stand out from the other speaker submissions. And sure, there are a number that are not good, but also there are a good number that are predictable, that it's like, I want to speak on content marketing and how content marketing is different today. Okay, but what?
Yes.
What's your point of view? What's unique here? What data do you have? What is it,
Right.
So I'm going to say craft a good speaker submission. And by good, I mean something that makes you pump up your fist and go, yeah, I want to say this on stage.
Okay, so we are going to review pieces of, or the beginnings of, a recent speech you gave. Set it up for us. So what was the event and what was the talk? Let's start there.
Yeah, so this was at MicroConf in April 2026. Mostly founders, but also just people who are on really lean teams. So it might be like the head of growth, head of product, but basically all people who are just very close to the software that they build. And I was one of 2 marketing people there, and I was there to speak on zero-click marketing. And look, this isn't my core audience, so I already thought like, okay, this is the opportunity to talk about the problem that we're facing, where like this is the zero-click world we're living in. And so setting the stage for the problem, but then having the back half be the solution. So like, here's what we do about it.
Right. Okay. Keynote, right? Main stage talk?
Keynote right after Jason Cohen, the founder of WP Engine, who was amazing, but I was a little nervous about being after him. But I was glad to be early in the day before lunch because I got to just relax, hang out, and network.
I'm going to play this, say the word stop at any point if you notice something that you want to ask me about or you want to comment about. All right, let's take it away.
All right, I think I owe you all a little bit of backstory on this best marketer thing. Here's the truth. I'm a fucking idiot who told what I thought was a really embarrassing story last night at the speaker dinner and said that on the talk that I did, the MC did not know who I was and so didn't know what to say about me and was like, this person is the best marketer ever in the world. And I was like, don't say that. And I should not have told that story because now, the best marketer's here.
Okay, stop.
But instead, it's just...
I forgot about this. I had told truly what I thought was an embarrassing story the night before at dinner, where at the time that I was introduced on stage as the best marketer in the world. And so I came out on stage and I was just like, don't ever say that. And so Leanna Patch is a comedian. She introduced me here as the best marketer in the world, so I could not live that down. It's funny, but I just
felt the need to address it and won some hearts. I felt the chuckles. I heard the chuckles there. That's great. It takes guts to like turn around and address something that happened in the room and not just plow ahead with pre-planned content as if you're like a robot spewing content, because you don't know how that moment's going to go, but you won people over even more that way. So props for that. Okay, let's dive back in.
All right, so now that we've gotten that out of the way, today I want to talk about a problem that I think every founder in this room is feeling but might not have the words for yet. You keep hearing that content compounds, SEO is a long game, and that if you just keep publishing, the traffic will come. But if search sends fewer clicks, social media suppresses links, and AI answers your prospect's question before they ever reach your site, and more on that later, you can't just publish content and hope for the best. So I'll show you what's actually happening on the web, why the old playbook is broken, and what you can do about it starting next week, or whenever you get back to your desk. So I will start by painting a picture of the world that we all grew up in as digital marketers.
So one of the things I notice about this is something I notice about a lot of speeches. Now, a couple things. One, let's give ourselves permission to embrace the fact that every speech, every creative project, there is no A+ or 100% correct. Like everything I've ever created, you could give me a million different things to make it better. That's just the nature of the work. So we'll just get that out of the way, give ourselves permission to make this better, knowing that it could always be better. And that applies to everybody I could possibly interview in the whole world. One of the things I noticed already was you've spoken 3 times now about what you will speak about, but you are already speaking. And that's a little bit of a behavior trait or tick that some speakers exhibit. And I refer to that as verbal debris. It's like there's good intention there, but it's actually not serving the audience or you as well as you might suspect. Whereas the intention is to make sure this will be good, stay with me. The best way to execute that is just say things where they're with you, right? They're so engrossed. They're like, yeah, I'm in. But I'm just curious, talk to me about the decision to do that. So the 3 moments I'm referencing, today I want to talk to you about, I will show you these 3 things. I will start by, And maybe if I hit play, there's a few more. So those are just 3 instances that I picked up on. But talk to me about like your reaction to that note.
It's funny because by the time we got to that third one, right, where I'm going to start by blah, 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 I kind of felt like, okay, this is a lot of throat clearing.
That's a good way to say it. So it throat clears. Yeah, it's throat clearing.
One thing is I have a lot of data to present in this presentation. I would say the first 15 minutes or so is pretty data heavy. Like I think I cite, I don't know, at least 15 different studies and a lot of numbers. So I think this was me kind of trying to prepare the audience or maybe myself for, we are going to go through it, friends. We have a lot of data to get to. Yeah. And I think I wanted to feel like I was anchoring people to something.
That's fair. I would say then if you're worried about them getting through the material, then the problem rests with the material, right? Not the setup of the material. When you do something like this, I think the intention is right. The execution could improve. So that's kind of the message here is like, instead of talking about the talk, just start the talk in a way that they don't question what's to come. It's like they don't care what's coming. They don't care what the agenda holds because this current moment is so good that that's all they're thinking about. They're mindful of the now.
So for years, digital marketing's superpower was supposed to be measurability. For search engines, right, we would optimize signals, get rankings and clicks. For social networks, we used to post links.
You seem to have a really good command of your voice.
Oh,
Did you feel that way or do you feel that way?
I don't know. I try to.
Yeah. Well, it's not like there's not a lot of ums and uhs and ticks. I even said there. You've ratcheted up your presence very seemingly naturally for the stage. Does that come from somewhere? Lots of talks, a childhood trying to jump in front of the camera. You don't seem to be on your heels at all. You seem kind of calm and present, inclusive of your voice, but also your physicality.
Oh, just trying really hard. Just being mindful and trying my best. I think it also just comes from watching a lot of other people talk. Funny enough, I feel like I learn more from a speaker when they're not as good. So
you learn what not to do or?
Yeah. Because it annoys me. Like when I see another speaker go, or end with every sentence with an or some kind of vocal tick, it drives me nuts. And I internalize, do not do that. And the other thing is, movement on stage is great, right? You want to move, you want to gesture, walk around a little bit. But I also think you don't want to do it too much. You don't want to be marching left and right the whole time.
No, I mean, certainly not. And I think a lot of people get tied in knots learning from folks who say to them effectively, put your hand here on your hip at that moment, not there, or, inflect higher or whatever, like scrunch your face up real mean, like in that moment. And these little moves matter, but they should all take their cues from the idea itself and how it's structured. I think so much of the battle of a good speech is structuring it because it's meant to be an argument to embrace one idea or change. And so there's a logic underpinning it all. And when you arrange all of your points you're making and your content, all these things, like what comes last is your performance. So I see a lot of people emerge from, like big training programs that basically print their version of a speaker and they end up with like really polished performance and motion on stagecraft, but they end up performing or exaggerating mediocrity. And it's like, who does that serve? Why are you doing it that way? So I don't know. Have you been intentional about your movement?
No, I've been pretty intentional. I believe that when you're moving on stage, the movement should, for the most part, serve a rhetorical purpose. Like maybe you are ranting about something and building up to a climax of some kind of big rant, right? Yep. That might make sense to march across the stage.
All right, let's push forward with the talk.
We call this the alligator graph. Impressions rise, clicks decline. The jaws keep opening. The core problem now isn't that nobody sees your marketing, it's that more people see it, but fewer of them click. So if this looks like your Google Search Console, you're not alone. So this is from the Financial Times, right? Condé Nast CEO says, major publishers are seeing...
What are you noticing, as you said, because we teed up before how you are going to present a lot of graphs and a lot of data. We've just gone through two really quick. What did you notice about that?
What's funny to me is the alligator graph. Because I know that well, and I know the point that I'm making, I wasn't reading that, but I feel like it looks like I am. Maybe I was seeing my notes, but no, that was one of the things that I was like, ooh, you got this. And I didn't feel that way. I thought that, but seeing it, I don't see it.
I wanted you, if you're familiar with it, I wanted you to make it like a signature bit. I think this was missing when you go graph to graph to graph is there's no transitions between the 2 points you made there, like the 2 data points or reports. So you can smooth the edges, make it one coherent arc versus report, see my point is justified. I think you can go deeper into the alligator graph and make it a true signature bit. And even at the opener, you can sort of tee it up. It's hey, I have good news and bad news for marketers today or for your marketing today. So the good news is more of our marketing, it's getting easier to be seen. It's easier than ever before. That goes up. The bad news is fewer and fewer people are clicking through to your website, to your sales page, to your contact page. Right? It's what do we do about that? Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I don't know. I'd like to know. And then you kind of away you go with the talk. So I think whether it's using it as a setup and a way into these points or just spending more time on that, if you're so familiar with it, I think there's a way to turn it from a point you're making into a signature bit, which means more of you. You can sign your name to how you would explain and teach that part. So there's an emotional component and then the structural and content components.
Yeah, because that's a really important point. The whole idea of growing impressions and declining clicks. That's a big deal.
Yeah.
And that is also a problem everybody is having. And that's important for zero-click marketing because this shouldn't feel this is a small company problem or this is a big company problem. It's everybody's problem.
So I think that raises the stakes significantly versus I'm an analyst looking at the industry. It's much more I am a leader. I'm moving you from what's broken towards what's better, which I think that's what we do when we give any kind of presentation in any setting. We immediately assume the posture of a leader, sometimes because optically we're up in front of the room or physically above them if it's a stage. And then mostly it's emotionally. It's the job of a presentation to break a pattern, to create a before and after effect. And so everything you're doing should be arranged as one coherent argument to break that pattern and give them the before and after. And I think this graph represents a larger piece of that argument than maybe you gave it runtime for. Let's see what else you got.
Right, impressions up, clicks down, across the board. This is a structural shift in how the internet works now, and it's not a problem with your content. So you might be thinking, well, search is dying, and everyone is using ChatGPT, and maybe this particular problem doesn't matter. But search is not dying. In fact, it keeps growing. So this is from the State of Search Q4 2025 report by Datos and SparkToro, my company. So since about this time last year, traditional search, AI tools, and e-commerce search have all grown. But, and this is the important part, a bigger share of searches now end without a click. The pie is getting bigger, but the slice that reaches your website is getting smaller.
So I think what fixes the whole it's dense, I'm going to lead them through a bunch of reports, is just frame it up a little bit. Just be there's a paradox that we're all facing. It sort of starts and ends with this graph. I call it the alligator graph. And it's not just this graph. Here's this other report. Here's this report from us and a partner, right? It's it's all pointing to the same thing, which is this paradox of you're able to get more visible, but you're not able to drive the traffic that you once could off of that visibility. More impressions, fewer clicks. You're able to, the pie is growing, but the slice that you're capturing to your website is shrinking. What's going on and what do we do about it? Right? So you kind of frame it at the beginning as this is really urgent. This is really interesting, but also really important, maybe even dangerous. and then you give some proof points, and at the end you kind of call back to the main framing of the thing. So you bookend that point, and then I think you can move on to like zero-click marketing, how to do it, etc. So you're just kind of like looking at, if I'm giving these 3 distinct points, do they sit alone as 3 points, or does it look like one coherent, seamless speech?
And when we say search, right, most of us picture Google, but search is now a behavior. It's not a channel, and it's happening everywhere, right? Traditional search engines still dominate, right, about 81% of all searches. Google alone is like 74%. But look at the rest. Commerce platforms like Amazon and I think eBay, it's like 10%, right? Social networks like YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, 5%. AI tools like ChatGPT and Claude, it's about 3%, and it's growing fast. So that means roughly 1 in 5 searches is happening somewhere other than a traditional search engine. And on every single one of these platforms, that zero-click problem applies. Amazon doesn't want to send you traffic. Why would it, right? It wants you to buy in the platform. YouTube doesn't want people to leave. So when I say zero-click problem, I'm not just talking about Google. I'm talking about everywhere people...
That felt like a really important point that you established that. What do you think?
That felt good.
Yeah. Yeah, it felt good. I do think that there needs to be some little tiny sum up early, again, a framing device of what's in it for me. Of like, not that, the clunky way to do it is be like, I am here to present to you the single change that you can make, which is a really small attainable change that will improve your conversion rate by 10% week to week. Like, that's a clunky way to do it. That's also not your message, but it's a clunky way to do it, is to be like, I'm going to tease you with this result that you actually want already. Because what I've gotten is 5 minutes of really smart industry analysis, but I have yet to think through or hear like what's in it for me. I am assuming, like, these are smart people, I understand, but I think there needs to be an overt acknowledgement, because right now you're leaving it to their heads to tie this to like their revenue, which, look, it doesn't take a rocket surgeon to tie it to what they care about, but just giving them one quick thing. So I think like you get, because the reason I'm bringing this up and being so vocal about it is I think you get about 5 minutes to look at the industry and analyze it, and or speak to a problem before at least mentioning a line about the solution and what's in it for me and kind of what your thesis is. And we just passed 5 minutes. We're at 5:09. And by the way, this isn't because it's not important. Everything you're saying is important. This is just because of the context of a speech and their event and their worries, and they're distracted, and and it's like, really, we're up against a really tough task as a speaker. And as any professional will tell you, if they're distracted, that's not their fault. That's yours. You have to really work overtime to make sure they're like, they want this, they need this, here's where it's going, kind of thing. So for me, I learned early on that I took too long. There was too much throat clearing, but also too much of like, I'm interested in the industry or the problem or whatever, and this is like factually very cool. But I've yet to hint at or hand you like the one change or the thesis for the talk or what have you. And so that I would give myself like a leash, like 3 to 4 minutes before something like that has to come out, even if it's just briefly and you get back to agitating the pain. So that's an opinion. It's not a factual thing that every speaker has to do. But how does that strike you?
I think I feel a little bit of resistance because, and look, this might be a being too close to the problem issue, where I feel like, no, but there's a lot to dive into that is the problem. And I'm not done yet.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But your job isn't to make them the expert that you are, or to say everything all at once. Your job is to say the first thing so you get permission to say the second, and then the third and the fourth. And by the end, they know how to make one change. So I don't yet know what the change is here that you're advocating for me to make. Mm-hmm. I know more about my industry, which is, by the way, top 5% speaker, but keynote speaker, I think you got to be top 1%. Mm-hmm. And so I think there's got to be some kind of assertion that you're making, not just the analysis, but I think that's what I'm trying to say is I'm like holding my breath. This is all set up, right? It truly is like, the setup. It's like the beginnings of a story where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop, or the setup of the joke where you're waiting for the punchline. There's kind of like this audience understanding of like, we're on the way up, we're on the way up, we're on the way up, and that's the point I was making, and that's the change, that's the punchline, that's the big moment of the story. And I think I was feeling myself get a little tenser because I'm like waiting for where this is all going. And you can only ask the audience to kind of like hold their breath for so long before the exhale. So sometimes I like to give them a little mini exhale up front, you know, like, hey, this is the problem, alligator graph. So what's the solution? It's actually not to fight the decline of the click line, but it's to do something different as it applies to the impression line. We need to talk about that.
That's interesting. I'm thinking, you know, it's funny, as you're explaining this, you said Rick releasing a little bit of pressure. I'm thinking of like, you know, you're building up tension, you're building up pressure, and to think about the little ways that you can like let out a little bit of steam here and there.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not the big release valve. Because I think what's building the tension, and I wrote this down, you said but 5 times. They weren't all big butts, which, as you know, I prefer the big butt. One big butt, maybe 2 big butts on stage. It's all you need for a good performance, in my experience. For the 2 people still listening and watching after that. But there's like a lot of little mini butts, which is, butt is the tiniest open loop. It is the little tiny like tension. Here's a moment of tension. Here's a moment of tension. It could be this, but really it's that. It's a little moment of attention. You can feel it in your chest. And so if you sprinkle in too many, you're just like all tension and no release. So I like your point of like mini release valves, or kind of like give them an actual reveal of the idea early before it's too soon. And then you kind of have to say, without saying it, like, let me explain. You know, you don't want to do the LinkedIn copywriter version of like, everybody's doing this wrong. Here is the solution. Let me explain. No, you just explain, right? But you do want to maybe give them the idea a beat or 2 before they're ready for it, and then continue to back it up with data and industry analysis or industry voyeurism. But anyway, so we're 5:10 in, and I'm feeling mostly tense, and I'm waiting for you to like be my guide and my leader towards a release in the tension. And I think we've established 2 ways: mini release valves along the way, and or maybe you have a big one. I think most speakers do, where they kind of go at one point like, so what do we do about it? We make this change. Big release valve. So there's like, you could do one or both of those things. So I think we can end there. There's a lot in the setup that drives the rest of the talk. What are you taking away from today? What are you noticing about your own speaking, watching it back, or the conversation we've had? What are you taking?
I am going to sit with the idea of establishing mini release valves throughout. I like this idea of like, okay, what can we do with this? Because I feel like, okay, there are a lot of problems here, right? A lot to get through. But I am interested in seeing how I can play with this, because it's about maybe up to 15 minutes of, hey, these are really big problems and these are all related and it gets worse. And okay, but I like the idea of putting in mini release valves every now and then building up again, and then having the big release of like, here's what we do next. We break everything and start from the ground up. I don't know, right? Like something that is like, this has to change now.
Right. Well, so I'll give you a little shorthand for this. Like, this is something I learned in my talk. Again, leading like 15 minutes of setup and problem, and people are going to really be feeling tired emotionally and wondering like, where's the release? Where's the release? What I do now, if you scan the structure of my keynote, I make a mini argument up front that lasts about 4 minutes, 4:20. And then I have the longer argument where I go into more detail with a more diverse array of points and frameworks and stories, tracing the same beats. So it's the same structure, kind of done twice. And it's always an argument to make one change, which is to think resonance over reach. And the first section, the little argument I'm making, or the flow of it, is, I'm not saying this, but I'm hitting content that resembles this. I'm saying, here's the audience goal. Here's your goal. Here's your current approach. Here's the problems with that. And here's the root cause. Make this change. The change is my premise. Think resonance over reach, right? And I don't necessarily say it. Like when I do it quickly, I land on a phrase that sounds like, don't be the best, be their favorite. And that happens within the first 4 to 4:20. So, but I'm basically giving you like the structure of my argument. And I'm using a metaphor to illustrate it, involving Disney films instead of people picking products or services or you. It's like, let's talk about our favorite things, including our favorite Disney films. And then what I do is I just accordion style stretch the same structure for the rest of the talk. So it kind of gives me permission to give them the release valve early, know what it is I'm handing them in theory. And then I'm kind of saying, without saying it, like, let me explain. Remember, here's the goal stuff. And I go into detail. Here's the current approach we take. And I go into more detail. But here are the problems. And here's the root cause of those problems. Remember to make this change. Here's a method for doing so. So it kind of gave me permission to say, oh, right, I need to really make sure that they're not tuning out and be captivating throughout. A speech is meant to be an argument, but the release valve portion, my reveal of what to change, typically comes like many minutes into my speech. How do I move it up without diminishing the point that I'm trying to make? Because there's a lot I could say to your point of like, wow, there's so much they have to know to get the problem. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like, okay, first I'm going to get their buy-in up front that like this matters and this is important and here's the idea. And then I defend it all throughout the rest of the talk. I don't know if that explanation applies here or makes sense, but it helped me avoid the like, Jay, you're setting it up too much problem that a lot of friends told me I was struggling with.
That's interesting. I think so. Like, I'll be interested in figuring out how I can like build those like not mini solutions, but like those small moments of like, here's what we do. Here's what we're going to do. But without saying that, right? But like actually providing a hint at the solution or something like that.
Well, like the simplest and quickest is I'm here with good news and bad news. Here's the good news. Impressions are going up. Here's the bad news. Clicks are going down. I call that the alligator graph. Now, what most people tend to do is they look at the diminishing click line. They look at the line going down. They look at the bottom of the jaw and they try to reverse it. And I don't think that's actually going to be possible. Not now, maybe not ever. I think that's a mistake. What we actually have to do is not try to like do like a backtrack towards click-based marketing. We have to embrace zero-click marketing because there are real rewards if you ride that line up and still know how to drive revenue. Okay, and then again, you get to a moment which is effectively you saying, let me explain. You know, for many years, and then you kind of do what you did at the beginning of this talk, and then you get through the data and like here are the problems and blah, blah, blah. So like there's a framing device that at once illuminates the problem, something they hadn't considered, which is your solution, and then you go and defend it and they really buy in after that. And that gives me the upfront release valve. But to your point, mm-hmm. there's no one way to do it.
And you know what, honestly, I think what I will do for this presentation next time, I think I'm just going to take out some of the research. Like, I do think everything's important, but it's also like, that's why I have a book. Because there's more of it there.
Yeah.
I kind of think like, I think I need to take some of this out to make everything land a little bit harder. You know,
or you can show them instead of tell them. Like one way to show, when you show, you tell a story or perform or embody an emotion, right? Mm-hmm. Versus tell them, which is like data. So give them the main macro data point. Maybe it's the alligator graph. And then you're like, listen, this is not just like this one graph. It's this one and 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 this one. It's all pointing in the same direction. What are we going to do? And you like really go through it quickly and you get more and more stressed out because you're kind of like, I know what you're doing here. You're saying like, I'm validating to the audience, this is truth. Make them feel that truth. That's much more important in the room. Mm-hmm. So you don't have to necessarily kill the data, but maybe perform it.
Yeah.
Final two questions. Who is a speaker you've seen firsthand or secondhand on the internet that you admire or you think deserves more admiration?
Ooh. You know, I think Caitlin Burgoyne is a really good speaker. I think most people on the internet now just kind of know her from her social media content, like the text content, her newsletter, which is great. But she's also a really good speaker, and I think a lot of it is because she's really good, or she was trained in the jobs to be done interview style. So she's also a good interviewer. Like she's good at reacting to things and moving the conversation forward.
So Caitlin Burgoyne, people should check out. Maybe we'll have her on the show. I know Caitlin. Last question. Zero-click content. We talked about this on your show. It's like I told you, public speaking is like the OG zero-click content or zero-click marketing. What do you feel empowered to do or do better because you have invested in becoming a better speaker?
I feel more comfortable now about treating people like we're friends, like we're marketing besties. Like,
Wait, what do you mean?
this is so weird. I think in doing the public speaking and the writing and the podcast, I've worked a lot on honing my voice and, developing the little jokes that I find funny or that feel very me, or even just introducing my anecdotes of like, in a newer version of this talk that we just went through, I actually added in a story about how I spent 6 years finding this romper that I really wanted after I saw it in an episode of Broad City, and like how the way the internet has evolved has enabled me to find it 6 years later. Like all those things, right, that might seem not small, but like insignificant. I think I've become more comfortable pulling those into the things that I'm already talking about. And so because of that, I feel like I can be people's marketing friend. Or I feel like I've kind of earned that spot. And there are actually a couple points in this presentation where I say like, besties, this is you and me in the room. We are the ones losing clicks.
I love that so much. Amanda, thank you for helping me pilot the revival of this show.
I'm pumped. Thank you for letting me be first in the hot seat. This was a lot of fun, and I was taking notes during this, so if I was looking away, that's why.
You're the best.